Welcome to Get Your Bell Rung Pro Wrestling Podcast. I am your host, KG, and tonight I have a real treat for everyone. I have a gentleman who has a bigger than life persona. He is known to be a powerhouse. He is known for his grit, his charisma. A gentleman who is a pure athlete, in my opinion. Someone that I met in Las Vegas that I instantly connected to. He is a wonderful person. You guys will know him as the Chicago Bear, a name that strikes both fear and respect in those in professional wrestling. The Chicago Bear, Steve Michaels. How are you, my friend?
Hey, I'm doing great, man. Thank you so much for having me on. It was great meeting you out in Vegas, and I'm excited to talk with you here.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on. This is one of the interviews I've been really excited about. You are such a great talent in the ring. You're even a better human outside of the ring. So it is a great pleasure to have you on.
Thank you so much. That means a lot.
Well, let's get right into it. Talk about professional wrestling. You know, professional wrestling is a very physical sport. And it can be very emotional and even isolating at times because of the travel and being away from your loved ones. Have you ever questioned your path? And if so, what pulled you back into it?
Wow. Yeah, that's a heck of a way to start. Yeah, I have had those moments where um I've doubted myself. I've doubted um that I'm on the right path. I've been let go of companies. I've um, had disagreements with workers uh, that have pretty big names in the industry. I've had fallouts with some trainers, and it's tough. It's really mentally tough. Like you said, being on the road. Um, a lot of the travel is so strenuous on at home in the your personal life and with everything. So yeah, it's been hard. But there've always been little things that show me, hey, you're on the right path. Anytime I've been down, I'm not a big believer in signs from the universe and stuff like that, but anytime I've been down, I've always had that one sign, whether it's an email from a promoter that I've been trying to get to work with, or a match opportunity that comes up or something like that. And then I'm always like, you know what? Let me this is temporary, you know what I mean? And let me get through it. I've been very lucky um to be surrounded by people that have always supported me um in this journey. Even when I first started, uh, all my friends, I told them, I was like, "Hey, I'm going to I'm going to start doing this," because I was 28 when I first started training.
Right.
I wasn't a young kid doing this, and all of them were like, "Yeah, that makes perfect sense. That's what you're going to do. You go for it, and we're gonna root for you." So uh, I feel very lucky in that sense. But yeah, there've been times, and um, your mind can really get to you sometimes, and um those quiet nights in a hotel room when you're 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 miles from home, uh and you're watching reruns of South Park or whatever, and you're just like, man, this sucks. I'd rather be at home right now. But you know then you get in front of that crowd, and
Right.
that crowd, just the energy in that sustains me so much.
Yeah. Now you are out of Illinois. Who is your home promotion that you work for?
Yeah, it's Rocket Pro Wrestling here in the Chicago area. It's based out of Joliet, Illinois. They run out of St. Joseph Park uh, down here. It's in the southwest suburbs of Chicago. I've been there for, gosh, 4 years now. Um, just wrapped up a 553-day heavyweight championship reign,
Yeah.
which, you know, anywhere is crazy. On the indies, even crazier, to have that long of a reign. But yeah, that's my home promotion. I love it there.
Yeah. Julia, Illinois. And I cannot remember her name, but you guys have someone who is a pretty well known model. She actually married Peter Knight from the Brady Bunch. Um,
Adrian Curry.
yes, Adrian Curry.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yep, yep, yep. I've been there. I've been to Juliet. It's a cool little town. It has that home, that that small town feel.
It does. It's at the junction of two of the major highways. It's right there off the river. Um, they've got a minor league baseball team there, and a bunch of casinos, and but then it's neighborhoods, and it's a nice Midwestern town. I think it gets a bit of a bad rap because one of the prisons is right there.
Mhm.
And that's what people know is like, oh, the Joliet prison and whatever. But it's a great town to work in, and it's the crowd at those shows. It's a family crowd. We pull in about 500 people each show,
Wow,
which
nice.
for an indie show is a really great number. So
Right,
we're selling out that building every month.
right. That's awesome. As I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast when I was introducing you, the Chicago Bear persona is a larger than life persona because you are larger than life individual. But who is the person behind the Chicago Bear? Who is Steve Szyndrowski? And what do most fans not know about you that you are willing to share, obviously?
Yeah, I mean, the bear is very different than Steve the person. And it's kind of funny because when the first time anyone ever sees me wrestle that knows me, they're like, "That's so crazy to see that is you out there in the ring and you yelling and beating the hell out of people and being that aggressive." But for me, I always grew up as a person who loved to learn.
Right.
So I love going to the museums. I love uh I'll watch documentaries. I'm a PBS. This is a PBS household here, so um, I on my downtime, that's what I like to do. I like to learn. I like
Right.
to to gain knowledge because I genuinely believe that without a holistic view of the world,
Mhm.
you can never succeed.
Right.
Uh, you got to know what's going around you, and from your point of view, from opposing points of view, from all of that to be a well-rounded person, and that's me as a person.
Right. Favorite documentary?
Man, so there's a series on PBS up here by a guy by the name of Jeffrey Bear, and he does history of Chicago, and he'll just go all across the city, and he'll break down the history of different landmarks, different hidden gems, and all that. And it's always fascinating. Chicago is such a large city, that there's always something new to learn about here
Right.
that you didn't know and realize the historical significance of it. So that's always my go-to, and I watch it on PBS all the time.
Right. Now, the next question is something that I've actually thought about. Everybody has bad days. Everybody goes through things, and life happens. For people who just have a regular job, oftentimes we're able to go to work, get away from as many people as we need to, and carry on our day and get through the mental distractions that is in our heads because of life happening, right? But as a professional wrestler, when you're walking through those curtains into the ring and you have personal things happening in your life, you're not in a position to just kind of hide and get away from people like most people are. Not only are you surrounded by people, but you're also having to entertain people. What gets you through those days? And how do you get out of your head mentally whenever you're having personal issues while having to perform?
Uh, it sounds so cliche, but it's the fans. Uh, Honest to God, it's the fans. There have definitely been days where things have been going wrong. I've had to wrestle on days when After just I wrestled after just finding out my uncle passed. I wrestled on the day of the funeral of my best friend's father, who was like a second father to me. And I had to work on TV that day for OVW. And so it's hard. Um, but it's the energy that I get from the fans. Because when you go through that curtain, my job is to be their escape.
Right.
And so they're letting go of all of their energy, and I'm giving everything that I've got left to them. And so it's this weird mutual exchange of just, their energy and my energy, and it gets me through. And then I come back through the curtain, and I feel a lot better about everything. Just it's
Right.
the fans, I don't think honestly realize just how big a part of it they are at getting us through these shows day to day, because we do some crazy stuff out there.
Right. Right. Now, I've gotten to be talk to a lot of professional wrestlers, and a lot of times I've heard the words addicting when they speak about their career and being a professional wrestler. Um, do you feel more of who you are inside of the ring or outside of the ring because of that addiction of being that professional wrestler and working in the crowds?
For me, it's kind of it's a little bit different, because the Steve Michaels you see in the ring, I always tell people that's me if I knew there were zero consequences to anything I ever did in the world. I could
Right,
say whatever I want, I can do whatever I want, and that's my art, you know. So for me, it's this release of, you know, man, three people cut me off on the way here, and I got stuck in traffic, and I'm 45 minutes late, and you know, but you know what? I'm going to release it. I'm going to let it go, and then I'll get in the back, and then it's this,
right,
it's me. So once I go through that curtain, I'm a little bit different. It is addicting. It absolutely is. There have been times where I'm like, man, I've had to take a month off or something for different reasons, and I'm like, man, I miss that crowd. Can't wait to get back in that ring. I need it. I need that cheer and that affirmation and all that. So yeah, it's a little bit different than it just being like, you know 50-50. It's like it's almost an out of body experience for me.
now as we've seen through so many professional wrestlers and heard all those stories, being a professional wrestler means that you are making a lot of sacrifices of yourself and your friends and family. What do you feel is the biggest sacrifice you've had to make that maybe people don't realize?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of wrestlers talk about it, but it's the missed birthdays, it's the missed weddings, the missed funerals, missing these important uh, things in life that, I've got to be in Alabama. I got to be in Tennessee. I got to be at this or that or whatever. So I miss those things. When I was first starting out, um, when you first start out, you take every booking you can, and every booking is super important because you need it in order to get that fan base and to grow. Um, and I'll never forget this. There was a small indie show in Florida where I was living at the time that was like, hey, we want to book you. We might start using you, but this would be the first show. And it happened to be on the same day as my cousin's wedding, which was in Costa Rica. And I
Oh,
was like, I really want to go. I was really close to him, and I was like, but I gotta take this. So the I think the fans don't necessarily realize just how much we miss.
right.
Like I mentioned, I've missed funerals and stuff just because of it. My mom's birthday I've missed, multiple times. It sucks, but you do what you got to do for this business.
Right. Has there been times that you felt like you've been underestimated or overlooked? And if so, how did you handle that both professionally and emotionally?
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely times where I believe that I was overlooked, or passed over for guys that um weren't as deserving.
Mhm.
And I hate saying that because everybody works their ass off.
Right.
Everybody works their ass off out there. Um, but to get passed over for guys who are on their second, third, fourth, fifth chance, um, who have, you know, done things that could potentially screw a company over, uh, and then just kind of be let go and or be told, hey, we're giving your spot up. That's a bitter pill to swallow. And uh, for me, it takes me a while to I go through the stages, like at first I'm pissed and I'm just like, screw that guy, screw them,
Right.
uh, but then I'm like, do you know what? I'm going to show him. I'm going to show him because I believe in myself. Um, when I was living in Florida, um, I used to on Saturday nights we'd go out to downtown, to the bars and stuff, and uh, at the time, I was training with the Tongans, and Tamatonga came to hang out with us one night. And one thing I always ask wrestlers when I meet them, that are of any level, I ask them, "What's the best piece of advice you've ever been
Mhm.
given?" Um, because in my head, if I learn what their best piece of advice they ever got was, which helped them succeed,
Right.
well, then everybody should really help me.
Right.
And I remember asking Tama, and he looked at me in the eyes and he said, "Never settle." And to go back to the initial question, I always go back to that
Right.
when I feel like, man, I'm being overlooked. Man, I should have gotten this when this guy got it. Okay, I'm not going to settle for that. So I'm
Right.
going to show you exactly why I am who I am and why I'm doing the things that I'm doing. And then I'll use that as my motivation and be like, screw you, man. Look at what I'm doing now.
Right.
And then I'm just going to excel.
Now, has there been times that someone that you were in the ring with, they were putting them over, and you just knew that you knew that you knew that this guy shouldn't be put over, that this should be yours? And if so, how many times have you been tempted to go in business for yourself and change the finish?
um, you know, I think every wrestler has that moment where they're like, I hate this booking decision. Uh, I could change it out there and shoot pin this guy, and then they've got to figure it out. Um, but it's a business.
Right.
It's also a business. So, I may sit in the back and be like, man, I could do this. I'm bigger than this guy. I
Right.
could shoot lay on him. And it is what it is. Um, but every time I've thought of that, I've never done it.
Right.
Um, I'll go out, I'll have the match, I'll finish up the match, the way that they want me to, and I won't. I'll listen to the crowd, and if the crowd is into it, if that crowd gets that reaction or that pop or that boo or whatever it is, and I'm like, okay, you know what? I was wrong. I'm never too big to admit that my thoughts and opinions are wrong. Um, but I'm always just kind of like, man, I don't know about this, I don't know about that, and there have been times where I've had discussions, long discussions with promoters, and bookers before matches where I'm like, hey, we've been working this angle for a long time. Like, are you sure this is how you want this to finish? Like, I think we could do it this way or that way. And sometimes they'll listen, and a lot of times they won't. Um, but again, that's the business of of professional wrestling, where you just kind of you suck it up, you deal with it, and you live to get paid another day.
Right. In professional wrestling with the titles, there's been those two that come to mind, Bret Hart and superstar Billy Graham, who took it personal when they've lost their titles. You just mentioned that you were on this crazy run, 500 plus days as the Rocket Pro Wrestling Champion. You just dropped that title. Was that something you took personal, or was it just a storyline lost to you?
Uh, that one hurt. And it didn't, like, I know it's all a gimmick. I know it, like, all kayfabe aside, like, I know what it is. But it was the first time in my career where a company actually looked at me and said, "We're legitimately going to make you the guy, and we're going to push you as far as you want and let you do whatever you want with the title. If you want to defend it in other promotions in other states, we're going to let you do it because we trust you." You know, and I'm very proud of everything that I did with the RPW reign. I mean,
Right.
I the first person to ever defend a title from Chicago and Hawaii. I'm the
Wow.
first. I went up to Alaska and represented that title. Like, I wrestled as champion, in Texas and all over. Like, it meant a lot to me. So there was a part of me that was like, man, I'm killing it and I'm doing more with this title than anyone else. No disrespect to anyone else.
Right.
I'm doing more with this title than anyone has ever done. I could keep this going. Um, but there was the other part of me that was like, I've I've faced pretty much everybody of note in this company now, and there's nowhere else for this to really go, unless you start bringing in names. There's nowhere else for this to go. So
Right.
I know what the deal is, and I know that's what's got to happen. So the selfish side of me was like, man, keep this on me for let me have a full 2-year run,
Right.
or let me be let me just have that reign. Um, but I understood that I had reached my pinnacle, and the when I dropped the title, the reaction from the crowd, that acknowledged that fact. The cheer when I got beaten finally, um, it blew the roof off of that building. And that's what it was about. That was the payoff that we had been working 500 plus days to get to. So, yeah, it hurt a little bit, my ego a little bit, but it's all business.
Right. You talked about the crowd cheering you. You are a heel, correct?
Yes, yes, I am.
No, and this
I'm
is
usually a heel. Yeah,
and this is what's crazy to me. I get because of your size and the way you just look so dominating that the whole heel thing does work. But outside of the ring, getting to know you, you always come across as a natural baby face as well. Do you prefer being a heel over a baby face?
yeah, I do. I prefer the merch money I make as a baby face over
Right,
a heel. Um, but as a heel, I have more fun, and I think
yeah,
anyone that's a professional wrestler, most will say, yeah, I have more fun as a heel, because you can just kind of you can say what you want, you can do what you want, you can cheat, you can kind of just be a dick,
right,
and just have fun with it. As a baby face, you have your limitations of what you can
yeah,
do and say and all that. So I enjoy it. Like I said earlier, it's almost a little bit of a release for me of just being like, do you know what? I'm always so nice. What would it be like just to be a dick for like
Big.
15 minutes? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now you got into the business at 28 years old. If the older you could go back to the 28-year-old you right before you walking through those doors to start your career in professional wrestling, what would be the number one advice you would give to your 28-year-old self?
Keep going. Um, there were a lot of times early on in my training, that first year and a half of training, where I got very discouraged because of uh, the environment of the training facility I was in. Um, and there were times there, and it wasn't designed as like, hey, we're gonna wear you out and make you want to quit. It was just, you know, at the time, uh, the focus in WWE, they were just about to start 205 Live, and so their focus was on the cruiserweights. And where I was at, they were like, we can get people in to WWE, but we can get them in NXT, dark matches or whatever, but they're really looking to build up that 205 roster. So we're going to focus on our trainees that are smaller. So I would get maybe 15 minutes of in-ring time and then stand around for about an hour, 45 minutes watching everyone else get multiple reps.
Mm,
Just because I couldn't physically do the things that
right,
everyone else could. Um, and that was very disheartening. Um, and it sucked. I love everything that I learned from there. Um, and I'm not gonna badmouth any of the trainers because they all did a phenomenal job with me. Um, but I realized very quickly this isn't the place where I'm going to succeed.
right,
Like, yeah, they've got a name, and this place has a reputation, and I'm seeing people get these NXT matches and whatever and get the extra work, but I I know I'm not going to excel here, so I gotta, my contract, it went up there with my training contract went up, and I was like, hey, I'm gonna try my luck elsewhere and sit under a different tree. So I would just tell myself, just don't get discouraged, keep going because you're going to do some really cool stuff.
right. Um, how do you decompress after your matches? Because I imagine your adrenaline has to be going even after you walk out the ring to go back to the back. What is your method of decompressing?
Um, I I'll I'll finish out the show and just kind of I'm a quiet dude. And I like to sit by myself and just kind of observe and watch and just kind of be there. Um, so I'll sit there at the end after my match and just kind of hang out and whatever. And then I'll go home or I'll go to the hotel or wherever I'm at. Uh, and I'll turn on the TV, I'll take a shower, and I'll order a pizza.
Right,
Um, and I'll just sit there kind of quiet and just have a pizza and just lay there and just kind of relax and just bring myself back down. And just kind of recenter and rehumble myself because you know it's very easy when you're in buildings with 500, 1,000, 2,000 people, uh to think that you're the king of the mountain and that you're the biggest thing in the world. And I like to try and keep myself centered on that and be like, I'm just another dude.
right. Joe Helms, the silverback, good friend of mine, friend of yours,
Good
said,
dude.
"That's my guy."
Dude, he's such a good guy, man. I love that
Yeah, I
dude.
love, yeah, I love Joe too, man. Thank you for watching and supporting the podcast, Joe. Um, over the years, how has professional wrestling affected you both positive and negatively?
uh Positively, I think it's helped me come out more of my shell. I was always a quieter kind of guy. Like I'd be able to have my moments where I could socialize and do whatever and do all that. But for me, I'm not a big people person. So
Mhm.
having to be out there in that ring with a live microphone, having to cut a promo, having to you're literally out there basically in your underwear, just wrestling in front of all these people, and um, that really helps you come out of your shell and kind of grow that way. The downside is, physically, I'm always sore. There's always something on me that hurts. I always have some kind of bruise or bump or cut or all that, um, and that's never fun. Uh, but I wouldn't trade it. I wouldn't trade it
Right,
for anything. I mean, the places I've gotten to go and things I've gotten to do, uh, there's no other way I would have gotten to do it.
right, right. Joe Helm said that you looked really good in Vegas. I completely agree with that. You looked amazing in the ring there. Uh, has there been a message or something said to you by a fan that you will always remember for your entire career?
Yeah, I mean, there've been fans who have come up, and I remember there's this one fan in Joliet. Uh, I'd say it was like maybe 15, and he came up, a super quiet kid, and he came up and he was like, it was at intermission of the show, and he's like, "Hey, I saw you wrestle earlier," and I was like, "Thank you." He's like, I was just wondering, like, what advice could you give me? Like, what?" She's like, "I think I could do. I've always been a fan, but I don't know if I could do it." And it immediately reminded me of myself when I first made that decision to wrestle, where I was like, I don't know if I can cut it. Um, and I remember that entire intermission. I stayed there with him through the intermission. And the show started again. It was in a separate room so I could keep talking. And I just gave him as much advice as I could about, finding the right place to train and, finishing out school and doing that and getting the education, but, go and follow your dream because, you know, you I hate having regrets in my life.
Mhm.
That's one of those things that I try and have as few preventable regrets as possible. And that's kind of what I told him. I was like, don't have that regret when you're, you know, 30, 40 years old of being like, man, what if I did it? Because I wish I would have started at 18. I wish I
Right.
would have started at 20. I'd be a lot further on, but
Yeah.
I'll never forget that kid.
Regardless if you're a heel or a baby face, there's going to be kids that look up to you. Is that a very heavy weight that you have to bear, knowing that in some type of a way you are a role model to a lot of these kids?
Yeah, it's a weird thought. It's a really weird thought because I've never really looked at myself as a role model. Um, I've always tried to live my life correct, and to do the best I can and be the best person I can, and to leave the earth a better place than where it was when I found it, and was born into it. So, um, it is weird for me to think about like kids that are there and wanting my autographs or wanting pictures with me and all that. There's times where I'll meet a there was an OVW show uh uh in Indiana, and I went there. I was signing autographs and stuff. This kid came up and he was so excited to meet me. He was like, "I've seen you on TV. Like, I'm so glad to meet you." I was like, "Oh, that's cool." And like that's all he cared about was meeting me. Um, and so I was like, uh, I remember being that kid. I remember going to the indie shows and uh watching it and being like, man, that'd be so cool to do that. Um and I remember I walked out, and I never do this at shows because it would get expensive. My entrance shirt, I took it off and I gave it to the kid. I handed it right to him. Um, and he came back at the end of the show, like wearing the shirt, which was it's a 3X shirt on like a
Right.
8-year-old kid. Uh, and then I signed it for him and took another picture. But I was like, you kind of forget that you can have that impact on
Right.
those kids, and um, uh, it's it's easy to take it for granted. But I like I said, I try and keep myself centered about it all.
Right. Talk to me about your time with OVW.
Man, I had so much fun there. I had so much fun there. Started in September of 2019. I was brought in by Jay Bradley. Um, Jay Bradley brought me in. I had worked with him. I worked one match with him up in Chicago. He, I'm sure he hates me telling this story. He changed the finish of the match mid match. He was supposed to pin me and beat me in the match. He he mid match he told me, he was like, take the boomstick, which is his finish. He's like, take it, and he was like, kick out. And so I kicked out from his finish. He was like, take another one and kick out. I took three of them, and then he was like, kick out, put me in your bear hug. And I put him in the bear hug, and he tapped out, and no one knew what the hell happened because he just called it on the fly. And he was let go of that company shortly after, and I never saw him again for about another year. Uh, had a did a an open tryout for TNA, um, and was reconnected with Jay, and Jay was like, "Yeah, you're not going to get any work from that." He was like, "But I'm the head trainer at OVW. I think you'd be a good fit. Why don't you come down and give it a shot?" He's like, "I can't guarantee any kind of pay for it." He's like, "But I think you would do well."
Right.
So September 2019 went to OVW, and they just couldn't figure out what to do with me. They had me doing some single stuff. They kind of threw me into a tag team that wasn't really clicking. And then the pandemic happened, everything shut down. And during that shutdown, I got a message from Al Snow, and he was like, "Hey, uh, we're going to put you with our faction, the Legacy of Brutality." Which was the top heel faction at the time. They currently had the tag Southern Heavyweight Tag Team Championships. He was like, we're gonna throw you in with them. You're gonna be a tag team champion now, and we're gonna let you just kind of do your thing, being surrounded by by Cash Flow and Isaiah and Big Zoe and Josh Ashcraft, who'd been down there forever managing. And um, I was like, okay, cool. Let's do it. Cause that's always my attitude. Like, let's do it. Can't hurt. Um, and had the most fun I'd had up until that point doing that. Cause they brought me in the first show back from the pandemic, had me join the LOB, and um, immediately became a tag team champion, which was insane. And um, we did that whole run, became the longest reigning Southern Heavyweight Tag Champs in OVW
Nice.
history. Um, and then they started running these house shows, and we did a whole summer where I was literally every weekend. There was one week where I had in 10 days I had worked. I was off like 3 days. Um, and it was just crazy. Like every weekend it was Thursday TV, Friday house show somewhere, Saturday house show somewhere, Sunday I'd come back home, and then I would go back down on Wednesday. So I was working a crazy schedule with them. Um, and the amount of learning that I got to do just riding in the cars with those guys, doing these shows, not everybody likes fair shows. I had so much fun doing them because I got to play around, I got to experiment,
Right.
try things. That's where you learn. Um, so had so much fun doing that. Um, I was there during the filming of Wrestlers. Uh,
Mhm.
when they filmed that whole Netflix docu-series, which was absolutely insane to be around and to have
It,
cameras following you.
yeah, and it was an excellent documentary, by the way. Absolutely
It was
excellent.
it was fantastic. From what I was told, they had enough footage that they could have done 4 different series,
Wow.
just from that. They were with us, um, all of those days. Um, they were with us, I would say maybe like 60 different dates.
Wow.
So throughout an entire summer. Um, it was insane the amount of footage that they had. Um, so what they had was what they deemed the highlights. I know there were guys who got their whole like storylines cut
Uh,
because they just were like, we don't have the time for it. Um, but yeah, I mean, that was so fascinating just to see how that part of entertainment works.
right.
And to be down there during the premiere and all of that. It was cool. I'm so grateful for the time I had because I there was a show I worked there that was literally in front of 2,000 people at a
Wow.
convention. Um, that they bought the show and brought us in, and um, it was literally like we were in the middle, and it was kind of like straight up, almost like a mall, and everybody was just surrounding us, like Coliseum style. It was cool. I had so much fun there, and I'm so grateful for the opportunities that I got.
Now, what was your biggest takeaway, the biggest learning lesson after being under someone like Al Snow?
You know, Al really kind of helped me understand myself better. And it wasn't just Al. Doug Basham was one of
Yeah.
the head trainers down there, and Doug does not get enough credit for the mind that he has. People kind of forget about him. Um, Doug, Al would spend time with me in the ring. Doug was the one that would be like, "You come in." He's like, "You come in on Wednesday. I'll get in the ring with you on Wednesday, just you and me, and we'll work on loosening you up in the ring." Because up until that point, I was very much just kind of almost robotic with my movements. I was always trying to think of the next spot and trying to remember whatever. And he was like, "No, hey, be loose. You got to be loose." And he got me into this this habit now, and I do this before every match. I just kind of get loose before I go out there and just kind of loosen my body up, and then I can just do it. So they both just helped me so much with just the mechanics of wrestling, and fine tuning who I am and what I do.
Um, and hopefully this is correct. I'm at the mercy of the internet when I'm doing research, but you've done some work with some charities, haven't you?
Yes, yeah.
Yes. Tell me, how has that changed you as a person doing the work that you've done with charity? Because when I pulled up, if you've done some work with the Children's Hospital,
Yes, yeah.
yeah,
So
talk to me about that.
yeah, so in my free time, um what free time I have, um I work with a 501c3 based here in the Chicago area called the Windy City Ghostbusters. And what we do is we have movie accurate Ghostbusters costumes, and
Nice.
we'll go to events. We'll do baseball games, corporate events, birthday parties, parades, conventions, all this stuff. And we'll raise money for one of the local children's hospitals here in the Chicago area, the La Rabida Children's Hospital. And they're on the south side of the city, and they serve a lot of underprivileged families. They do work with some wards of the state. They they don't get the light shined upon them for the work that they do with a lot of the specialty cases that they do, because there's two other um, larger and more prominent children's hospitals in the city. Um, and so all the money we raise goes to this hospital. This year, we've already donated like $7,000 to this hospital.
Nice.
Um, and that was over that's just since June. From June until
Nice.
now, we've donated $7,000 to this hospital. Um, every Christmas we do a toy drive, where Rocket Pro Wrestling lets us put a toy box at their December show, and we collect toys at the December show. There's businesses all around the area that let us put boxes in. And last year we showed up with literally a U-Haul truck full of toys. We had 1,300 toys that we had were able to donate to the children and patients of this
Right.
hospital.
Right. That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, so I love getting to do this kind of work because you know I grew up being taught that there's others less fortunate than me.
Right.
I'm very lucky, to be able to have food on my table, a roof over my head. I've got a car. I'm making money with this job. Um, Not everybody gets to say that.
Right.
So if I'm able to give back through that and subsequently use the platform that I've been lucky enough to grow to then help promote this great work that the Windy City Ghostbusters are doing, um, and help raise even more money that way, I'm so glad to do it. I'm so glad to do it.
Talk to me about the Chicago Bear persona. How did that become a thing?
It was I wish I could take credit for it. Um, it was when I was training at Team 3D Academy. The head personal trainer there is a man by Dan Carr.
Mm.
And Dan Carr is a name not a lot of people know, but he was the creator of American Gladiators. And he trained he was a champion arm wrestler, um, trained champion boxers, and he trained all of us like he would train his boxers. Um, and while I was there, he 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 put a lot of focus on me, and I appreciate him so much for it. Um, where we would do sit-ups with uh, punching bags on our chest. Um, no one holding our legs, and I'd have a 75-pound bag on my chest, and I would do 200 in a clip. And one day as I'm do and he would like we'd have CrossFit guys and like bodybuilders come in and they'd be like, okay, do sit-ups with him. And they'd put a 25-pound bag on them and me the 75, and I'd be out doing them. And one day he looked at me, he was like, do you know what you are? You're a bear. He's like, you wouldn't look at a grizzly bear and say, look at that grizzly bear. He's fat. You'd be like, no, that's a grizzly bear. He's gonna kill me. He was like,
Right.
yeah, he's like, yeah, you've got fat. He's like, but you've got muscle under that fat. He was like, you're a bear. He's like, you're the Chicago Bear. And that's where it came from.
Nice.
Is Dan Carr uh called me the Chicago Bear, and he was like, you should go with that. And I was like, I honestly think I might
Yeah.
because that's too good to not use. And that's how it came to be.
Awesome. You talked about being trained at Team 3D. Uh, were you ever able to work with Devon or Bubba Dudley while you were there?
Yeah, they both were around. Devon was there more often than Bubba. Um, Devon was there Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Bubba would kind of come in whenever. Um, Devon was more of the trainer.
Mhm.
We had Serpentico was the main trainer there.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
and so he was training us the main stuff, and then Devon would come out and he would then kind of get into more of the technical stuff. Bubba would come in and he wouldn't teach us moves. Um, he would do promos.
Mm.
And Bubba is such an underrated promo guy, that he would be like, yeah, absolutely. Well, let's do promos. And we would sit around the ring and he would be like, okay, somebody get in the ring. And so whoever it was would get in the ring. They'd cut their 2 minute, 3 minute promo, whatever it was. Bubba would just sit there. He would sit there and watch and listen. And he'd be like, that was okay. And if he said that was okay, you knew it was good. If he said it was good, you knew it was great. Uh, and if he said nothing, you knew that you just stunk the place up. Um, and he'd be like, that was good, but what if you did it like this? And he would immediately cut the same promo back to you in your character, in your gimmick, and it would be a million times better than whatever you did. I saw him do it for the men. I saw him do it for the girls. Um, you know, he did it for one girl who had a very like kind of Barbie-ish gimmick. I swear to God, Bubba, I watched Bubba cut a promo in that gimmick better than she did. That's how good he is on the
Right.
mic. I learned so much from that, and it was such a great starting point in my career to be like, yeah, I learned promo basics from Bubba.
Right. Now, you were trained by two gentlemen, well, more than two. You talk about Sapitico, but by individuals at a school that their names are amongst the who's of
Yes.
professional wrestling. Because of that, at any point when you were sent out on your own, was your head bigger than what it should have been? In other words, was your expectations higher than what they should have been because of the names of the individuals who trained you?
No, and the reason why is like so. Team 3D is the school that I left. Um, because Devon at the time was work just got hired with NXT.
Mhm.
And so Devon then had the in at NXT, the cruiserweight and the 205 guys. And I was like, I'm not one of those dudes. And I'm seeing, uh people like Lacey, Kate, and Carter uh get through and all that. And I love Lacey to death. She was one of my closest friends. I was like, but I can't do the stuff that these guys are doing. So um I went to a different school called Pro Wrestling 2.0, run by
Mhm.
Alex Porto.
Mhm.
Um, he was the owner, and the head trainer at the time was Jesus Rodriguez, who most fans know as Ricardo Rodriguez, Alberto Del Rio's ring announcer.
Yep.
Um, Jesus, great mind, great wrestler. Um, and I went into that place kind of beaten down because I had watched everyone get kind of pass me by, and he got my head right, and he was like, "Just do your thing." And I'll never forget the first day of training at 2.0. Um, did everything that he asked everyone to do. Porto asked everyone to do. Porto brought us all outside, had us cut promos. I cut a promo on a guy, did in a minute, like on the dot, a minute. And he pulled me aside. He was like, "Why aren't you doing shows?" And I
Hmm.
was like, you tell me, sir." And he was like, "I'm going to get you on soon." And so for me, it was never one of those things where I was like, I felt entitled to anything, but it was always one of those things where I was like, I'm going to show you why. Like I said before, I'm going to show you what I know I can do and
Right.
use that as my motivation.
Right. Success means different things to different people. Some people measure their success by the amount of money they've made. Some people measure their success by how big their name is. What does success mean for you?
For me, uh, look, I've been able to see a lot of the world that I wouldn't have seen without wrestling. Um, I have made a lot of good friends in this business. um, people that I wouldn't have met otherwise. Um, I've gotten to meet, wrestle with, train under people who I watched on TV and had so much respect for. Um, my measure of success, it's not how much money I'm making. Um, it's not, you know, my time that I spent on OVW TV and all that. My my measure of success is the experiences and saying, "Hey, I can say that I did this." You know, I can say I've, you know, not even 10 years into my career, I've not only I have I wrestled in Alaska, I've done it two different tours. I'm going getting brought into Hawaii like 6 times a year. Like
Wow.
these are things that wrestlers dream of. So for me, being able to know that I'm working on a level that other wrestlers dream of doing and working in these companies and places that other wrestlers have as a bucket list place,
Mhm.
that's my measure of success.
I want to go way back to your very first match. Um,
Geez, I hope I remember it.
well, what was that
Actually, I do.
experience?
I actually do remember it. Yeah.
What was that experience like? And would you consider that one of your worst matches you've ever had?
It wasn't one of my best. Um, it was, yeah, it was the Drizzlings, man. I remember it was I it was at Pro Wrestling 2.0. It was their show was called La Ultima Cena. It was in November of 2016. Um, I wrestled a guy by the name of uh, Sweet Thang Willie Brown. Um, and yeah, I bumped way too much in that match. I wrestled like I did always did in training. And yeah, it was not good. It was not a good match. I'm grateful for it, and I'm grateful that like it happened and the way it did. But yeah, it was not a terrific match. I'm can guarantee it's on YouTube if you really want to dig for it.
And I will.
But it is not I'm not moving well, and you can tell that I'm not comfortable out there at all. I'm just
Right.
yeah, you can tell it's my first one.
So, talk to me about your family for a moment. What type of relationship as a kid did you have with your parents?
Oh, yeah. So uh it's a great family. I've you know, I was adopted. Um and my mom and dad were always fantastic for me. They always believed in me from day one. Um you know, even when I didn't, even when other people didn't, when I was having rough times, um they were the ones who were always in my corner, no matter what, and they always believed in me. And I appreciate them so much for it. Um, my mom was not a wrestling fan at all.
Mm.
My dad was a moderate wrestling fan. Like he watched it sporadically, but like, you know, at that time it was Monday Night Wars, you know? So like he I'd go downstairs and you know, he'd either have Raw on or he'd have Nitro on. And I would like watch it a bit, and then like my mom would be like, "Why are you watching this in front of our son?" Um, and then he'd change it. But like I that's how I grew to love wrestling is through my
Right,
dad
right, right.
and all that. So
How was their reaction whenever you're like, mom, dad, I know I'm the right road. I was doing my college thing. But instead of having the easier life, I want to get beat up on, risk injuries, maybe struggle for a long time. What was their reaction?
Yeah. So by the time I decided to do it, my dad had already passed. My mom, uh, I remember talking to my mom about it. I went to visit her, and I was like, this was after I had met Afa, I had met Tommy Dreamer, and both of them were like, "You need to wrestle." And I was like, "Oh, I think I'm gonna do this." Um, and so I went to my mom. I was like, "Look, I'm really thinking about wrestling. I know you hate it. I know you're not going to be a fan of this idea, um, but you have supported me through literally everything I have done in my life, and um, I'm gonna do this either way. Like, I want you to know I'm gonna do this whether I get your approval or not. But it would mean a lot to me if you just said, go for it." And she was like, "Are you sure? Like, are you sure this is what you want?" I was like, "Yeah." Um, and she was like, "Look, give it a week. Just seriously think about it for a week. And if at the end of the week you still want to do this, then I'll 100% support your decision." And I was like, "Okay, no, that's fair." Because that's how she always was. Like, just think about it before you actually do whatever it is. Uh, week went by. I was like, "Yeah, no, I'm 100% becoming a wrestler." And she was like, "Okay, well then you be the best wrestler you can be." Um, and that meant so much. So she's watched me on TV, which is super cool with OVW. Um, like that's she brags about me to her church friends, and uh she's come to see me at shows. She was there when I won my RPW heavyweight championship. I didn't let her know that I was going over, but I was like, "Hey, I really want you at this show." So she was there, and she got to see me win a title. um
That's awesome.
it's been great. It's been really great.
Now, I mentioned about you going to college. That so many professional wrestlers, for whatever reason, didn't either have the opportunity or they just decided they didn't want to go to college. What was your major?
I studied anthropology.
Why, as I said, instead of having, an easier path, a more dedicated path of a better financial guarantee, um, what was it that moved you? I mean, I know the things you've already said, but there had to be just that moment that you were, I don't want to do this college thing. This is what I need to do.
it's it was a combination of things. Um it was a lack of work opportunities. um and then um it was then kind of like, well, what do I do now? um and um what ended up happening is I went to when WrestleMania was out in I think it was like LA or San Francisco or something. I think it was San Francisco. Um and I did the fan access. I went there as a fan, and I was like, "Oh, the Wild Samoans are here. Like, I'd love to meet them." Uh and I walked up to the table. Afa looks up at me, and he just says, "You a wrestler?" And I'm like, "No, I don't know if I could cut it." And he just kind of smiled at me, and he was like, "You never know until you try." And then he signed the autograph, and I went on my way. And my friend who was with me was like, "What did Alpha say to you?" I was like, he asked me if I was a wrestler, and then said, "You never know until you try." And he was like, "I don't know, maybe you should give it a shot." And then later that month, I was in at the time I had a really crappy wrestling podcast. Like no one listened to it at all.
Kind of like
Um,
mine.
no, like I mean, we got some guests on, like we got Jeff Jarrett on it for somehow, but I have no clue how. We had like 20 listeners,
Right.
um, and but we ended up getting a media pass to the local comic book convention in Chicago, and Tommy Dreamer was there. And I, growing up as an ECW fan, I was like, we got to interview Tommy Dreamer. So we did the interview with Tommy, and then afterwards we're just talking, and he stops in the middle of this conversation. He looks at me, he's like, "By the way, I've been meaning to ask, are you a worker?" And I kind of chuckled. I was like, you're the second person that's asked me that this month. I was like, I'm actually thinking about it. And he was like, well, he's like, when I was in charge of hiring wrestlers as talent relations, I was specifically told to hire guys that looked like you. So if I was still in that position and you were a trained wrestler, right now I would be offering you a contract just on your size. He was like, how old are you? I was like, I'm 28. He was like, start now.
Right.
He was like, you're gonna age out. And I was like, yeah, I guess I'm doing this. Because that's a hell of a thing to be told,
Hmm.
is like to have a contract almost kind of dangled in front of you as the carrot. Um, and so that's what did it. That's what that's why I was like, okay, no,
Yes.
enough of this anthropology thing.
Final two questions. One of them, what's next? And the last question is going to be, what is your final goal? What is it that you need to achieve before the day comes that you're leaving your boots in the ring as you're leaving?
Oh, so what's next? I've I've got a lot next. I'm uh, screw it. I'm going to announce it on here. I'm in October. I am scheduled to make my debut wrestling in Australia.
Wow.
Um,
Congratulations.
thank you. Um, that one, that's I haven't told anyone. That's literally breaking here. So I will be wrestling in October there. Um, and I'll be back in Hawaii and all that. But um, what will it take? What do I need to do before I call it a day? I I want at least one match in one of the major companies. Um, in an ideal world, I'd love to be signed, and I'd love to have a nice little run, even on mid or lower card. But um, if I have a legitimate match, um, competitive match on AEW, TNA, WWE, NXT, um, I'll be happy. Um, I feel like I have a lot left to go in my tank. And where I where I was when I left OVW is a very different spot than where I am now. Um, I know the lessons that I learned there, um, working TV, working those kinds of crowds, working that format. Um, and now that I have honed my craft better through traveling and a higher work rate, um, working names like name guys out there, I think I could have a nice decent run in any company out there, whether even someplace like MLW.
Right.
um I think I've got a good run in me somewhere. It just all depends on the way that the cards fall.
Now, Before we say good night to everyone, I know I asked you what's next. What's immediately next? Is there any dates that you want to talk
Ye-
and promote?
Yeah. So coming up, it's October. I gotta look at, I keep a physical calendar because I'm uh October 9th, in Honolulu, Hawaii is my next major date. Um, that's at Hawaiian Brian's, for Oos Wrestling, uh, run by the Samoans out there, and it's phenomenal company. And then it will be um, the 18th, October 18th. I will be wrestling in Brisbane, Australia, for Venom Pro Wrestling.
Wow, that is an incredible opportunity. Congratulations again. If there's anyone out there that I've met that truly deserves all the success in the world, it's absolutely you. I think you're an incredible human being. You're very, very talented. I will take up your promoter's offer of if I'm ever in the area that he's going to get me in.
Absolutely.
I'm going to show up and watch you again in your home in Illinois. I appreciate you coming on. Please keep in touch with me. Is there anything ever that you want to promote? Please put it on my social media page. I'm all about helping people within the business to be successful. And I truly do thank you for coming on. It was an honor to be able to interview you.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a fun interview. It's We touched on a lot of things that I don't think I've ever discussed in an interview before, which is always fun for me.
Right.
Instead of answering the same 10 questions, um, but it was phenomenal meeting you out in Vegas at CAC, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Absolutely. Guys, don't forget tomorrow night at 7 p.m. we will be doing a recap of AEW Dynamite, the go home show before All Out. So please check us out then. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. And you guys have a great week.